Rahim, Assalamu alaikum. So, in this uh, lesson, inshallah, we'll be going through the analysis of the poem Nurse's Song, but from Songs of Experience. We've already done Nurse's Song from Songs of Innocence. When voices of children are heard on the green and whisperings are in the dale, the days of my youth arise fresh in my mind, my face turns green and pale. Then come home, my children, the sun is gone down, and the dews of the night arise. Your spring and your day are wasted in play, and your winter and night in disguise. So, in the innocence version of the poem, a nurse finds joy in watching the children in her care play in a field at the end of the day. But in this nurse's song, by contrast, the nurses takes no such pleasure in childhood innocence. Instead, she seems to resent the way the children remind her of her own youth and childhood, and even to feel that the children's play is a waste of time and a form of deception. Okay, the first two lines. When voices of children are heard on the green and whisperings are in the dale. So the poem speaker is the nurse of the title, okay, the woman in charge of a group of children. So when the poem begins, it's getting late and the sun is setting. The children in the nurse's care are still playing outside. Line 1 actually begins with the same phrase that begins the version of Nurse's song from the Innocence section of Blake's collection, placing these two poems in a conversation. So, in the previous Nurse's song, the nurse can hear children's voices on the green and their laughter from the hill. Here, however, that laughter gets replaced with whispering in the dale or in the valley. So the sounds of joy thus give way to something stranger and more unsettling. Perhaps the whispers speak to the fact that the nurse is now excluded from the joys of youth because she is an adult. It is as though the children have their own club that she is not allowed to join. The whispers might also suggest suspicion, secrecy, or even prohibited behavior. So it's not even clear if these whispers belong to the children themselves or to some other. Perhaps it's kind of sinister presence. That is, maybe those whispers represent threats surrounding the children as night falls. Note too how the poem locates this whispering down below in valley, whereas the children from the innocence version of this poem are upon a hill. This might represent a kind of fall in the biblical sense, in which the children descend from the heavenly heights of joy to the gloomier depths of suffering. The days of my youth rise fresh in my mind, my face turns green and pale. So the nurse talks about how she feels when she sees the children playing. Watching them reminds her of her own childhood. Because of this, her face becomes green and pale, which suggests that seeing their happiness makes her feel uncomfortable or even sick. This is very different from the calm and happiness in the poem from Songs of Innocence. There could be several reasons for this feeling. Since the nurse speaks from the point of view of experience, she has already lived her life and knows what usually happens when children grow up. Because of this, she may worry about the children's future, knowing that life can become hard. So during the late 18th century, many children face poverty and child labor, so she may fear the same fate for them. Another possibility is that the nurse feels jealous of the children. They are still young and happy, but she can never return to her own youth. This may be why her face turns green, suggesting envy. Her word choices are also important. The word rise hints at the line where the dews of night arise, linking the end of childhood with the coming of night, just like the end of a day. The word fresh is also a little ironic. Okay, the nurse's memories may feel clear and vivid to her, but in reality, they belong to the past and cannot return. With this, we move on to the second stanza. Then come home, my children. The sun is gone down, and the dews of the night arise. Your spring and your day are wasted in play, and your winter and night in disguise. Lines 5 and 6 repeat the lines from the Innocence version of Nurse's Song. In both the poems, the nurse tells the children that it is time to go home because night is coming. So this poem appears in Songs of Experience, while the earlier version is from Songs of Innocence. However, the meaning feels different in this version. Earlier, the nurse said her face turns green and pale, and because of this, it seems like she cannot stand the children's happiness, or she might be worried about the dangers that will come with the night. In the Innocence poem, the children talk back to the nurse and convince her to let them play a little longer until the daylight ends. But in this version, the children do not speak at all. There is no protest, which may show that this nurse is stricter and less kind than the nurse in the Innocence poem. This nurse also believes that playing is a waste of time. She says the children are wasting their spring and their day. These words may mean the actual spring season and daytime, but they can also symbolize youth and childhood. The nurse does not explain why play is a waste of time. It could because she no longer enjoys fun, or because she thinks children should prepare for the difficult adult world ahead. The last line has a similar idea. The nurse says the children waste their winter and night in disguise. Here, winter and night may symbolize the coming of adulthood. The word disguise is also important. Children often use disguise and imagination when they play. It helps them learn about the world and be creative. But the nurse seems to dislike this behavior. She may think the children are being dishonest, or she might believe that childhood innocence itself is only an illusion. With this, we move on to the theme that is present in this poem, adult cynicism versus childhood innocence. Okay, so in the version of Nurse's song from Songs of Experience, a nurse watches the children. She looks after playing outside. In the version from Songs of Innocence, the nurse enjoys watching the children play. But in this poem, the scene makes her face turn green, which may show jealousy, disgust, or both. To this nurse, childhood is not a happy and innocent time. Instead, she thinks it is a waste of time before the sad reality of adulthood begins. The nurse says that the children spend their winter and night in disguise. Here, winter and night may symbolize the end of innocence and the dark, difficult life of adulthood that will come in the future. The word disguise connects with the earlier mention of whisperings, suggesting that something dark or deceptive may be hidden behind their play. The nurse might think that the children are already close to adulthood and that their playful behavior hides more serious or troubling feelings. In any case, she believes their childhood fun will soon end. Other poems and songs of experience talk more clearly about what life was like for children in the 18th century England, especially the harsh effects of the Industrial Revolution and child labor. So these ideas may also be present in this poem. The nurse may believe that the future suffering of the children makes their present happiness meaningless. Even though her exact feelings are not completely clear, she clearly thinks that childhood and its freedom and joy are only an illusion or fantasy. The symbol that is present in this poem is the rhythms of nature. In this version of the poem, the rhythms of the natural world symbolize the transition from youth to adulthood and from innocence to experience. The poem links sunlight and spring to childhood innocence. The children are in the freshness of their youth playing on the green. They seem safe and happy. Night, meanwhile, seems to represent the difficult realities of life that lie in the wait for the children. The world isn't the protective, nurturing place it appears to be, the poem implies, and the children are wasting away the final moments of their youth by playing rather than preparing for what's to come. So, the arrival of winter and night in turn represents the idea that one day soon the warmth and light of the childhood will give way to the cold, harsh world of experience. Now we move on to the literary devices that are present in the poem. The first one is assonance. The assonance makes the poem sound musical and rhythmic, almost like a song. It also helps draw the reader's attention to the important moments. For example, in line 3, the days of my youth rise fresh in my mind. So the repeated I sounds stand out. In my, rise, and my and mine. These long vowel sounds make the line noticeable and suggest how suddenly the nurse remembers her youth. In the final three lines, assonance becomes even stronger and also creates internal rhyme. And the dews of night arise, your spring and your day are wasted in play, and your winter and night in disguise. So night, arise, night, and disguise. One assonance, the other one is day, wasted, and play, A sound. So the repeated I and A sound in day, wasted, and play, and night, arise, and disguise. Okay, these sounds stretch the line and gives it emphasis. This helps express the nurse's disapproval of the children spending their time playing. The second one is juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is very important in nurse's song. The poem belongs to a collection that explores the two opposite states of the human soul. So the poem shows several clear contrasts. First, the poem contrasts the age and experience of the nurse with the innocence of the children she watches. It also places bright images like day, spring, and youth next to dark images like night, winter, and maturity. The children are playing happily in the distance. Their youth is full of energy and joy. The nurse, however, feels uncomfortable when she thinks about youth. Memories of her own younger days come back to her mind and make her feel green and pale, suggesting envy or bitterness. This creates a strong contrast between the carefree children and the worried, unhappy nurse. In this way, the poem shows the difference between the happiness of youth and the worries and frustrations of adulthood. This contrast also works on a symbolic level. The setting sun and the coming of night represent the movement from childhood to adulthood. The nurse tells the children that their spring and day are wasted in play, and that their winter and night are spent in disguise. By placing day and night and spring with winter, by placing day with night and spring with winter, the poem suggests that the change from innocence to experience implies that the adult world will eventually destroy the carefree happiness of childhood. The next literary device is repetition. So this poem uses repetition in a few different forms. For example, in lines 3 and 4, the nurse says, my, the word my, 3 times. The days of my youth rise fresh in my mind, my face turns. So this diacope focuses readers' attention on the nurse and her inner state of mind. It also suggests that she is preoccupied with her own memories rather than thinking about what's best for the children. Note how your in line 7 and 8 then mirrors the speaker's use of my. Your spring and your day are wasted in play, and your winter and night in disguise. So this highlights the sense of separation between the nurse and her children. Finally, note how the speaker repeats the word green in lines 1 and 4. When voices of children are heard on the green, my face turns green and pale. So this repetition connects the children's play to the speaker's or the nurse's disgust. The speaker is either repulsed by thoughts of her own youth, repelled by the children's behavior, sick with worry, or all of these things at once. Now, with this, we move on to the form, meter, and rhyme scheme that is present in this poem. Let us first talk about form. So, Nurse's song has a simple structure made up of only two quatrains. Each stanza follows an ABCB rhyme, and the lines alternate between tetrameter and trimeter. Because of this pattern, the poem is similar to a ballad, a type of poem that was traditionally sung. This gives the poem a familiar song like rhythm. Meter. The poem mainly uses anapest. Okay, यानी कि two unstressed followed by a stress. And iams, unstressed and stressed. The first and the third lines of each stanza have 4 feet, यानी कि tetrameter, while the second and fourth lines have 3 feet, यानी कि trimeter. So it is alternating between what? Between tetrameter and trimeter, and sometimes it is iambic, and other times it is anapest. For example, in the first stanza, when voices of children are heard on the green, क्या है ये? ये है tetrameter. And whisperings are in the dale, ये क्या है? Trimeter. The days of my youth rise fresh in my mind, again tetrameter, and my face turns green and pale, again trimeter. So this rhythm sounds light and lively, almost like a song. However, this cheerful rhythm is a bit misleading because the poem actually talks about the loss of childhood innocence. Last thing, which is rhyme scheme, it has a very simple rhyme scheme. In each stanza, the second and the fourth lines rhyme. जैसे कि B, A, B, C, B and D, E, F, E. Okay. So this rhythm pattern is typical of ballad stanzas. The rhythm uh, and rhyme make the poem sound simple and musical, even though the nurse expresses negative and serious thoughts about childhood and growing up. Okay, if this we end this explanation. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask.